Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Today is Sunday, July 21st, 2019. Hope everyone is having a great weekend thus far. Today we're going to do our updates like always, but I brought on a special guest. It's been a while since we've had anybody on the show kind of joining us as secondary commentary. Hello, Henrik from the Grand Solar Minimum Denmark channel. How you doing?
Hello, Jake, and hello, Mari. I'm doing very good, thank you, and I hope all the listeners are too.
Been a while since we've talked. I know you've been crazy busy. You've had things going on in your life, and of course, everyone else just, doing their thing. But since the last time we talked, it's been quite some time, a few months. But if you would kind of enlighten us so far this summer on what kind of weather you guys have been experiencing. I know you've heard our channel talk about all kinds of floods over here. Generally, what's the climate like in Denmark at this time of the year?
Oh boy, well, I think I will start with the start. We did get off with a very cold spring, especially April and May. We did have in April 21 days in a row with frost in the nighttime, and we also had a lot of frost nights in May. And due to that, a lot of apple farmers in Denmark are absolutely not happy. And what I'm telling you now is not a joke or something I have made worse than it is, because it's written in the farmers' paper, And they had the yearly meeting in the last week. And actually, some of the apple farmers were sitting and crying, because 80% of all the apples are just gone. And I have to say to start, this is not all apples in Denmark. But again, it's 80% of all apples. So it's a lot, And one farmer usually have about 104 tons of apples every year. And he has about 10 tons this year. And a lot of farmers said they did not even bother to go out to look for apples in the trees, because they were so far apart and so bad apples. And it was just a very bad situation, So we're not going to have a lot of apples in the Danish stores, of course, this year. And due to prices, we don't see what you see in other parts of the world yet with empty shelves in Denmark. But absolutely, I think the prices are going steady up, but nobody's talking about it. But everybody is standing and look at the thing they get after they have been buying stuff, to see how can it be so expensive, You can just see it in people's eyes, What I did not expect. I have used so many money, but you have. Well, and otherwise, I can say that so far we did have 12 summer days in Denmark this year. But we will, of course, have the heat wave in next week, but we can talk about that in a moment. But I just want to say that the temperature in Denmark before 1948 was a lot hotter in the summer times than it actually is today, because I've been looking through a lot of DMI papers, the Danish Meteorological Institute, and it was not uncommon back in the 1940s and 30s and 20s that we in Denmark have in the summer times 91.4 Fahrenheit to 95 Fahrenheit. Today we only get up to about max 91.4 Fahrenheit, and that is of course in the cities with a lot of cars and whatever we have, So the warmest day in Danish history, well, of course, only in the time they have been recorded history, and that goes back to about 1920. But the hottest day so far and still was back in 1941, July 12th, where the temperature was 95 degrees Fahrenheit. So a summer day in Denmark is, of course, 25 degrees or over that. And now the interesting is coming, because when I've been looking at all the papers from DMI, I can see that summer days in Denmark from 1970 to, well, today, we will have about 9.9 summer days in a year. But if we look at the years from 1931 to 1960, there was 10 summer days in a year. Well, that is a little bit more,
Yeah.
and not a little bit less, you know. So, so that's it. And now we will, of course, have the heat wave starting from next week, Tuesday, in Denmark. And again, Denmark is usually broken in two places. Some places will have it hot when it's hot in Europe, and other places will have it a little bit less hot. But the heat will come to Europe and in Denmark, and in some part of the country we will have between 77 and 91.4 Fahrenheit. Spain, Italy, France, Holland, Belgium, and Germany will also have between 77 and 91 Fahrenheit. So it will be a warm week. But again, like I say to a lot of people I talk to about heat, the heat is not suddenly something is coming, you know, it's coming from somewhere, you know. And the jet stream, how often have I not been saying the jet stream is really teasing us? And you can see last year in Denmark, normally, like I say, we have 9.9 summer days in Denmark. Last year we had 71, and I did not say 17, I said 71 summer days. So of course, last year everybody was up and about. Oh my God, it's true, it's global warming. Each summer from now on will be like this, you know. And I was already on my videos last year say to people, come down. Of course, we will not have the same summer next year. And I know from a fact that a lot of farmers would have been so happy if they have heard what I have been saying, because they have put things in the soil they're not making money off this year, of course.
And I'm glad you mentioned the hotter temperatures from previous 1950s. You mentioned the record in the 40s, and that was also during a time where we had less population, B had less CO2 man emissions. You know, if that ever had anything to do with the temperature increase, and also the length of the heat waves were a lot longer back then. I was talking to Matt from Nebraska a few days ago, and you know, there have been 6 people who have passed away from this heat wave, but we were talking about how brief this is compared to what we used to see in previous decades. This was only about a 3-day event here in upstate New York. I think the Midwest was about a 4-day heat wave. They've been pretty hot lately anyway, but these heat waves aren't lasting for 8, 9, 10 days in a row like I remember as a child when we had hotter summers. Also, wanted to point out too that not only is it not happening in a row, but it's not happening as often as far as the heat waves. We would get, this is the dog days of summer. Now, next week, Wednesday the 24th, here is that heat wave you're talking about that you guys are also going to be going through for a few days. And, you know, looking at this GFS going all the way out, I mean, it's going to get pretty hot. It's going to kind of pipe down a little bit across France and Europe at the end of July. But as we get towards the end of July in Spain and Portugal, I mean, it really gets hot again. And going into August, that heat spreads back. So, so far this year, I'd say it's safe to say that Europe has definitely seen a lot more heat in the summer than this summer. But if you look at this run, I mean, this is nothing too crazy. This is just a typical summer pattern over here. And hopefully this next, go ahead.
Yeah, it's just because when you are having that map up, you know, I had another map up before we went on, you know, over Africa, you know, because I heard someone in the radio said that the heat wave was coming from Africa as usual, I would say. And then I said, okay, but if all the heat is, it cannot only be, you know, I have to see it for myself. So I checked Africa and the temperatures, and they are very low from Africa actually now. Of course, because it's moving.
Yeah, so you know, a lot of hysteria about the heat wave, and also I want to point out that they're reporting another record-breaking temperature in France, and I can't pinpoint the exact area. I think it's right in this general vicinities where we were talking about record-breaking 45 degrees centigrade now, or Celsius, again, or 46. This was a 46 degree reading. I have not heard yet. I've heard rumors that it was another rooftop station. Again, I don't understand why social media outlets or news outlets will even report on these so-called all-time high temperature when it's on top of a roof or near an airport. So I'm still waiting to find out what the actual location of that station is out there as far as that record-breaking temperature in France.
Yeah, and I'm so happy you said that, because the heat I was talking about back in the 20s, 30s, and the 40s in Denmark were all out, way out in the countryside, where there were no buildings, there were no cars, there were no pavement. And today, I have seen so many papers write about, oh my God, watch out for the pavement or the asphalt because it's getting so hot. Yes, of course it's getting hot. It's black. And with all that in the cities, it will only heat up the city even more.
Yeah, and that's just it. You can't get a reliable warm temperature. And even in the wintertime, you can't get a reliable cold temperature as well. You still have to deal with jet exhaust on the tarmac. The sun still heats up the pavement, even though it could be surface temperature of 32 degrees outside. That pavement can still be about 4 to 6 degrees warmer if that sun is beaten down on it. So lots of factors. Of course, we know the game. We've seen all the manipulations, and that's kind of what it goes back to with this whole NOAA just naming June one of the all-time hottest Junes on record. I don't know about you, folks. Most of you that follow this channel in the U.S. know that we've had a very odd June summer. Even in areas where we've seen summer-like weather, we're still getting cooler temperatures. We're not getting that extreme heat that some spots in Texas are used to, or Oklahoma. But I'll get more into that as we get into the broadcast. Let's jump over to space weather real quick. Solar wind speeds a little bit down, 347.8 kilometers with density of 1.8. Another blank sun, folks. This is 13 days in a row. We are soaring past 2018 so far as days without sunspots. Right now, we are 131 days without sunspots in 2019. That's now 65% of the year. And when we go to space weather side of our website, I'll show you why I think that's going to continue to get even bigger here as far as the days in a row. Our TCI is down a little bit, 2.77. It was down from 2.78, so not much change in the very upper part of our atmosphere. KP sitting at 2, and the 24-hour max has been at a 2 as well. And we are at the space weather section here. Let's look at that. Not much activity from the sun whatsoever. Pretty darn quiet. KPs have been flirting with 2s a couple times, but mainly staying at a 1. But here, let's go ahead and zoom in real quick. This is our SDO right now. Not a lot to talk about. No large coronal holes at the moment. However, if you do check out this angstrom here, we do see one that's occurring on the far eastern limb of our star that should be Earth facing or Earth turning here soon. So what does that mean? Possibility of maybe some geomagnetic activity from this coronal hole. It is right there on the equatorial region of our star. So if this hole does kind of hold together and we get any kind of solar wind from this, it will directly affect Earth's magnetic field. But as we're looking at this image right here, this is once again telling us that we're about 15 to 27 days out of possible sunspot activity unless we get a sudden development of an active region. Other than that, I remember someone making a crazy quote somewhere on the intranet about how solar cycle 25 was beginning. So that means we're getting ready to start our maximum. What's in the drinking water for these folks out there that make these claims, and who's telling them this stuff? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Like, who is telling them that when we start solar cycle 25, we're out of the minimum and we're going into the maximum? And I don't know if you've noticed this, Henrik, but it just seems like there is a lot of confusion these days in the climate community, not just grand solar minimum, but the climate community altogether.
Yeah, absolutely. And it only makes me how should I put it? Well, there's a certain balance, you know. You cannot be fanatic. You cannot go that far left, if you can say it like that. So
Yeah.
everything you see or hear has to be something, you know. You have you have a job to do yourself, you know, me and you and everybody else, and that is to analyze and to research stuff. If things don't make sense to you, you know, then you have a problem. And what I usually do is then I'm just looking at more stuff. But at the moment, as you're saying, it's a little bit difficult because there are so many different opinions about the solar cycle 25.
Well, and you know, you mentioned how we have a responsibility, and people like you and Starman, who's been awesome for helping people understand. And hopefully, we're hoping to get a roundtable session going here soon. And our friend Starman could be joining us in the very near future. So, stay.
Oh, la,
Yeah,
la,
that
la,
would
la.
be nice. So, but I
Yeah.
mean, there's so many people who are. I don't know. I've noticed lately that there are some channels who are starting to realize that we got to pull it together here. Too much information is being distorted, and I think overall, I know channels like Adapt 2030 and Ice Age Farmer, ourselves, and you. I think everybody's on the same page, pretty much the same foundation. Um, we don't want to fear it up, but at the same time, the time of sugarcoating anything and holding back information, that we can't do that right now, especially how fast we are approaching this grand solar minimum period. And things like this. Another volcano. This happened on the 19th, Friday. We haven't been on air since Thursday. So this is old news, but just wanted to bring it up too. I mean, ash plume up to 40,000 feet on this one here. And this one was I saw a time lapse of this. Let's see if I can find some more footage. It was pretty impressive. But as we're seeing papers out there that are confirming grand solar minimum, that we're in it, and the more we look for news articles about climate, earthquake, these are increasing. 40,000 feet. I mean, we were talking a couple of days ago, Mari and I, about how many large volcanic ash plumes we've seen so far in just the first 6 months of 2019. And there for a while, it was all just about earthquake, earthquake, earthquake. And here lately, we're starting to see some volcanoes kind of coming to life here. This is the first time I can remember reporting on this one in quite some time, if at all. Another earthquake that or not earthquake, but volcano, more eruptions at Mount Etna continues. This is a July 20th. Intense strombolian activity in the new southeast crater, which had resumed yesterday afternoon, underwent a big abrupt diminution between 2010 and 2015 on July 19th. During the night, the infusion rate of the vent of the northern flank was strongly reduced by the lava front stagnated about 7,217 feet on the western head wall of this particular crater. So Mount Etna, uptick. Um, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right here. The Ubinis. Henrik, do you have an idea what that earthquake is out there, or volcanoes called out there in Peru? I think it's the Ubinis.
I'm not going to try to pronounce that.
Just
No way.
me out there to butcher everything. I got it.
I have enough trouble try to pronounce words from Greenland, as you will hear later.
Another eruption at Mount Bromo, East Java, Indonesia. Of course, we've got all kinds of action out here with earthquakes and volcanoes. New eruption was reported at 9:37 UTC on July 19th. Again, two volcanic explosions in the same day. This one, as you can see, the particulates in the atmosphere after and during the eruption here.
Oh, hey guys.
As you can imagine, it probably triggered a little bit of fear. Folks ready to get out of Dodge here. Yeah, no more picture time. So July 19th, very active day. Tourists and residents of the village reported cold lava hit their village at around 1700 local time. It's an ordinary natural phenomenon not directly related to the eruption. So interesting facts there, watchers.news. But again, we've monitored California, earthquakes off the coast as well. There's a volcanic field in that vicinity, and folks are concerned about the volcanic or the earthquake activity that we've had out there, if it's related to volcanic activity. And I guess where I'm going with this is that, you know, this is part of what John Casey was trying to warn people in his book Upheaval, where he feels between 2017 and 2037 or further, we will definitely notice an uptick in volcano and earthquakes, and also a big event when it comes to an earthquake or a volcanic eruption. And right now, we're just seeing a collection of a little bit of everything at this point. So,
and he's so right, I think.
Well, and just like stuff like right here, you know, on top of the earthquakes and the volcanoes happening during this period, we see weather that's out of place for certain parts of the country, just like a damaging tornado here in Greater Manchester. Somebody earlier made a sarcastic comment. This was going to be the new Tornado Alley, but not very often do we see tornadoes in this area. But the tornado swept across Moberly and Antrim and hail near Manchester Airport, damaging cars and buildings. Power outages reported. One eyewitness said it was seemingly 5 minutes torrent of madness. Meteorologist Greg Dewhurst of the UK Met Office. The ingredients for a tornado were unstable air through stormy conditions and wind shear, where air travels in different directions at different heights in the atmosphere. Those ingredients were there at the right time across the Manchester area. So check out the graphics here at watchers.news. Always resourceful information. So that's what the main headlines are as far as weather and volcano earthquake around the world thus far. Guys, oh, I wanted to mention one more thing. Believe it or not, the heat index was approaching, this is old, but still, right before Friday, right before we got this extreme heat, this was what was left of a snow pile. Okay? I know you can't see it very well, but let's take a look at what it looked like before. And that was from, of course, this past winter. But to have a snow pile finally disappear, this is what it looked like on March 14th, by the way, too. And still to have any kind of trace, what's a very weak trace of a snow pile, but it's there. You can't tell me that June was a record month for heat. Not with what I saw across the Midwest, not with the temperatures and the rain, and naturally with rain comes cooling. So, all right, guys, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Sit tight, guys. All right, so starting off our climate section today, I touched on this a little bit, but not a lot. Hello, Henrik. How you doing, buddy? Are you still with us?
I'm fine. Yes, yes.
I saw you waving. So get this, I bet you probably have politicians over there that are trying to implement some of these as well. But the Green New Deal.
You said that.
What's that?
We nearly had an election in Denmark, and like always in Denmark, they promise a lot of stuff, and when the election is over, they are turning copes, or what the bloody you're calling them, because they have all been talking about, oh, now we have to be a greener Denmark, so they will not allow any fossil cars in Denmark, but that goes against the EU, so nothing is going to be done about that anyhow.
Well, and this article kind of lays it out about how this is not about climate change in the first place. This is about changing the economy. And some people out there disagree with the American economy being strong. And that could be because you might be in an area of the country where the economy isn't that strong. It's not fixed in all the United States. There's parts of this country that need a lot of help. I can't speak on everyone who's doing good and bad. So I do apologize if I offended anybody with that comment. But for the most part, there are strong parts of this economy in different parts of the United States. And I feel like I live in a state that has a decent economy, a lot of red tape, but a good economy. But when you put these green deals in place, like New York is jumping ahead of the federal government and is basically implying its own version of a Green Deal by banning gas, natural gas, coal, and they want to run their power. New York wants to be solely reliable on solar, wind, hydro, and nuclear. And I thought about this for a minute, and I wasn't quite sure how much power or how much electricity that we get from what. There's some pretty good numbers in here, some good facts. 85% of the global primary energy is in the form of fossil fuels, oil, coal, and natural gas. The remaining 15% is almost all nuclear and hydro. Green energy has increased from 1% to 2%. So let's put this into perspective real quick, Henrik. If we cut off 85% of our primary energy sources in the next 10 years, and our solar and wind is bringing us 2% and maybe a percent increase. So let's give the benefit of the doubt that solar and wind goes up to 10% in the next 10 years, and nuclear and hydro goes up to 25%. Okay. 35% of our energy is being generated through means that do not produce enough electricity and energy for the demand of the country, of the state, of wherever it is. How does that work? I'm trying to figure this out. Like, are we going to have to get used to the new norm of rolling blackouts? If 37% of the energy we need is only being generated and we're missing the rest because some crazy politicians believe that by cutting out oil and coal and natural gas, that it will change the climate. I don't know, Henrik. If you ask me, if CO2 warmed the atmosphere, and considering that we're going into a cold period in the next 3 decades, it's going to get real cold. But my problem with this is it's not going to be the sun and the wind. You cannot rely on for more than 17 to 35% of the day. So where are we going to get that energy from? Where are we going to harvest that from?
Yeah, I really don't know, and I also don't remember if it was on your program. I have heard this, or maybe in a newspaper I read it nearly, that Germany is thinking about shutting down one of their power plants due to the Fukushima accident, of course, and that will mean that a lot of Germany will be in somehow affected and have a lot of blackouts.
I know I know the electricity bills in Germany are already skyrocketing right now. So I can't imagine shutting. Now, of course, you could look at it from this standpoint. If only 15% here in the United States is hydro and nuclear, then how much are they really losing? But they are a country that's going to go green on everything. So they really can't afford to lose anything such as a nuclear plant. And we did talk about it, but we didn't go too far in depth with it. But these are scary things for me, like to be limited on how I can use my heat or my electricity or my hot water. The emails that we got over the weekend for reducing the use of these things, of the air conditioning and stuff like that for the heat wave, was concerning because here we're still using coal and oil and natural gas to, feed our energy demands, and we're asking to reduce any kind of use of electricity in our homes. So what's going to happen in 3 years if New York gets its way? Because they want this all done in 3 years. They want this ball rolling. The natural gas is absolutely is supposed to be banned in New York. Okay. Coal plants are going to be shutting down. They want this ball rolling in 3 years. So what are they going to do? In my opinion, 3 years from now, 2022, we're looking at some pretty harsh winters up here in the Northeast. There's no other way to get around it. Especially if we continue to see these volcanoes popping off 30, 40, 50, 60,000 feet into the stratosphere. Okay. We're going to be dealing with a summer next year where we may not get out of the 70s for the most part if these volcanoes keep popping off like they have. So, again, when we look at some of these politicians like AOC and Bill de Blasio, and we've already heard them talking about other topics, and they really show lack of intelligence when they talk about other topics. And I don't even want to get into what else they deal with as well. But when it comes to the climate, this is typical politician garbage. And I'm going to say this, Henrik, here in my country, I think both sides of the aisle don't have it right on the climate. I think the conservative side is too scared to take the full dip into what we're talking about in this community. I think that they're more open-minded to saying that we don't know what causes climate change instead of the left where they say you're causing climate change. So honestly, one side of the aisle does favor the cooling community a little bit, only because they believe too that the science is not settled and that we need to look at all the data, and there needs to be more transparency in how this data is relied. So I'm all for that as well. But again, I don't feel like there's anybody that takes a strong stance on saying, look, it's not CO2. Do you feel like that your country is one way or the other over there?
I will say 90% is believing in man-made global, and maybe 10% is not. But the 10% you not hear about, either because they don't. Well, I guess they just fear to talk open about it. 1% is talking about it, and that is Henrik Svensmark and Jacob Svensmark. I hear nobody else.
Look at this. Your country is in this graph as out of line renewables as far as how much it costs. 30 cents per kilowatt in Denmark and Germany. So the trend is 0.02 cent, and you guys are paying 30 cents. So quite a bit increase in renewables and how much they cost in your country. France being one of the lower ones, the U.S. being one of the lower ones right now. But the reason why the U.S. is so low is because they're still primarily on fossil fuels right now for their energy needs. So until
but I have to say, why it's so expensive in Denmark is really not the power. It's expensive. It's all the other crap they put up on. Then we have CO2 tax. We have atom power tax.
Wow.
And we have tax my mom, tax my daddy, tax the political, tax my ass. So that's why it's so expensive, because the power is actually cheap in Denmark. it's all the other stuff who cost the money they put on the top, you know.
It
It's so
reminds
stupid.
It is, and it reminds me of the gas prices. I think I can't. I don't know what it is in New York, but I think in Ohio, before I moved, I think honestly there was like 63 cents of taxes on gas per gallon. So technically, gas prices should be around $1.50 when I left Ohio a few years back. But instead, you're paying well over the $2 mark because of all the taxes that come in from the county, the state, the federal government, everything they try to squeeze into fossil fuels. And what's unfortunate is that I think I don't know. Maybe these people should get together and just keep taxing instead of banning it, because I think it's going to be a huge money situation where the money's going to dry up really fast when they try to cut off coal and oil and natural gas. And, there's rumors, some people are saying, and other studies, that to convert to this Green New Deal, we're looking at an initial infrastructure cost of, when it's all said and done, everything's retrofitted, somewhere around $93 trillion. And I think that's just the beginning. I think there'll be more money that will be used to maintenance these things. And when you're talking about grand solar minimum, I had some guy commenting in the comment section, kind of a clown. He wants to put all these solar panels all over the Mojave Desert, and he wants to put solar panels all over the country, and over 500,000 of wind turbines all over the country as well. Hey, Mari, how do you feel about having 500,000 more wind turbines installed throughout the United States?
I am not a fan of wind turbines, Jake.
Mari and I believe that there is effects from these wind turbines. I'm not going to go as far as saying cancer like our president did, but I do know that there are certain things that can affect mental health, anxiety through frequency. And there's something about these turbines that give off bad juju, EMFs. Yes, that's what I'm looking for. Plus, not only that, but going back to the maintenance cost. So let's say that we go ahead and just throw all these solar fields everywhere. All right, let's do it. Let's install the wind turbines. Let's install these solar panels. And then, of course, this year we keep saying this is just the beginning. And then next year we get more violent hail, more violent wind, all right, more flooding. So now you've got millions, if not billions of dollars of solar fields destroyed from hail, from flooding, from wind damage. Okay. And who is going to go out there in the wintertime and brush the snow off of these solar panels in certain parts of the country? Who's doing that? Who's going to go out there and de-ice these blades so they don't get heavy and fall off of their, whatever they're called, their propellers, whatever. But I mean, to me, they're not thinking ahead. These people like AOC, they're not thinking ahead. They're basically like a really bad quarterback. They're throwing the ball at their feet. We need a quarterback that can throw the ball in front of the receiver down the ways. In other words, solutions that will help us adapt and change into what's coming, not something that's going to be a temporary solution now. Because again, solar wind is not going to be sustainable, not just because it doesn't have enough sunshine and wind out there, but you gotta filter in cost for maintenance. You have to replace panels, and then, or if you get back-to-back storm damages, I get it. There's insurance money, there's federal money that gets into this, but how many trillions of dollars is this Green New Deal going to cost taxpayers? And is it going to be worth it in 10 years? Are people going to freeze to death or die of other ailments because they can't afford electricity? I mean, the heat took 6 lives today. What happens if you just can't afford your power and we get stuck in another one of these heat waves? All because of solar and wind. I don't know, Henrik. This is a subject that really scares me, because I don't feel like the politicians really work for the people anymore. There is a bigger agenda out there. I think those powers are the ones that are trying to control the information. They're trying to control the food. They're trying to control the energy prices. And that's why I think information like ours and other channels that are like this gets suppressed, because this channel makes people aware. I mean, look, you can take the science from this channel and what we speak about and all the people that we mention, from Svensmark to Jasper Kirksby to Casey to Zarkova to David Dilley, all of them. I'm sure I've missed a few greats out there. Even the contributions of our local people like Starman. The message is the same. Shorter summers, which means shorter grow seasons. Colder winters and springs, which also means shorter grow seasons, which will turn into less food supply. And look, if we're already seeing empty shelves in the United States during a time where we should have plenty. So, I don't know. I'm totally against any kind of political agenda that changes the economy. They say 93 trillion in over a decade. That would quintuple the United States debt within 10 years. The Obama administration doubled it. Think about this, folks. $10 trillion was what the debt that Obama inherited. Somewhere around 12, maybe 10 to 12 trillion. He adds about another 8 to 10 trillion in just 8 years. Think about that for a minute, how much trouble we are with that. And now go ahead and increase the debt to another 5 times what it is now. In the same time span of what happened during the Obama administration. A lot of that was war. I get it. A lot of that money was spent from the war. Trying to get out of Afghanistan and Iraq and cleaning up other messes. I get that. But there were still a lot of things that were used to spend. The EPA regulations. There's a lot. We can go on and on and on, but that's not for this show here. We'll have to come up with a different channel for that kind of topic. Getting off track here, but that's what happens when you mix politics with reality and truth. Unfortunately, it's not always on our side, guys. U.S. farmers brace themselves for further crop damage. Farmers in the U.S. expressed concern about the hot, dry conditions currently being experienced, which comes shortly after the heavy rain and flooding caused by severe damage and delays in planting crops this spring. By the way, 4 to 5 weeks late. The planting disruptions left crops with shallow root systems, made them more vulnerable to damage from unfavorable weather, such as predicted heat waves, experts said. U.S. maize future prices reached a 3-week high on Friday, with the soybean prices rising as forecasts for a heat wave led to concerns about potential damage to crops. You've got 10 days of low temperatures on a crop that can really take much more stress. Confidence is rising for forecasts for hot, dry weather to build over significant portions of the Midwest, raising stress on maize and soybean crops with shallow root systems. According to the latest U.S. Department of Agriculture USDA report, the U.S. government's production forecast for maize has been increased based on a larger than expected June planted estimate of 91.7 million acres. Okay, guys, first of all, just because that there were 91.7 million acres estimated planted doesn't mean all 91.7 million acres are growing or maturing or progressing like they should be. But in other words, this is the important part to take from this article, just another article repeating what we've already said. A recent USDA reports on U.S. crop conditions said that 57% of the country's maize crop was in good to excellent shape in June, down from 75% a year earlier. So nearly 25% lower last year to this year. What's next year going to be? 30%? 35? Goodness. Guys, I just got an alert. If you go to the Starman channel, while we're talking about crops, let's go ahead and take a look at
TSM's garden. Hope you're all having a great time, enjoying the weather. Supposed to be hitting a heat wave in the week, so some of these tomato plants might look a bit dribbled and shrunken after Friday. The key there is obviously to keep feed and water going into them, obviously avoiding leaves. I've got 4 varieties going this year, so it's a little bit of a test to see which one produces the best crop for me. And obviously we've got the dwarf beans running along the fence as well. It's a west sided fence. That's west facing.
Boy, Henrik, it looks like David's got a pretty active garden going on here.
Yeah.
Lots of plants. These two type on the left there are Shirley. Then move along to Alice Craig, which is this one here, which I usually do well with. I've let an off shoot come off this one. I've stopped it at the second truss. I usually stop these after pinching out at the fourth truss. As you can see, we've got some nice fruit coming on there at the moment.
You guys want to check out the rest of this video?
Moving to the pony tunnel, which I brought.
Oh, he's got a
June this year.
mini greenhouse too.
And again, I've done a test. Not had much time to get much sorted.
Go ahead and check this video out, folks, at the TSM Solar Observation channel. We'll put the link in our description after the show. But our very dear friend Starman, good to see him. It's been a little bit since we've seen a video on his channel. Guys, go check that out. Please subscribe to him. Give it a like and share it with your friends, because this guy is not only knowledgeable in the garden, but his weather information, his sunspot information, everything that revolves around his work is spot on. And I can't tell you how many times I have leaned on David for help with oscillations, ocean temperatures, understanding El Nino. He's really been the person that helped me understand certain things like the sunspots and stuff like that, along with other people that's helped out in the community as well. But really, David has been a huge wealth of information for this community as well. So good to see him putting a video up. Guys, make sure you go over to his channel, subscribe to his channel, give it a like, and please share that as well. And one more thing before we get into the weather part of the show today. Indiana, the U.S. Department of Agriculture extended the deadline to file crop acreage reports for agricultural producers in Indiana impacted by flooding and heavy moisture. The new July 22nd deadline applies to reporting spring seeded crops to USDA's Farm Service Agency, county offices, and federal crop insurance agents. Gives the information here for anyone to file to reach Hannock County. It can be reached at 317-462-4501. That number, again, is 317-462-4501. And it gives you the location, the address where you guys have time to report. So it's good to see that the USDA is extending some of these deadlines. They probably need to do it for states like Illinois, parts of Iowa, parts of Southeast South Dakota. But I just wanted to pass that little bit of information on here. All right, guys, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with our weather segment of the program. Sit tight. All right, guys. So today I found Weather Channel's temperature outlook. They've been spot on pretty much all year. At least the first 2 months of their forecasts have been pretty reliable. And I'm going to have to say that they were pretty close with July's cooler spots. Our cool spots in July were right around the Illinois, Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Indiana, Illinois, parts of Northwest Ohio. And it pretty much was a little bit cooler in those regions. Obviously, we had a lot of rain. So now Weather Channel is calling for slightly below temperatures across the Plains states and the Rockies, well below average in Wyoming and parts of Montana and South Dakota and North Dakota. Slightly above average temperatures in the Northeast and, of course, above average in the South. Parts like Ohio Valley, Kentucky, Tennessee, they need the above average, especially for their crops. The temperatures have been up and down. And then, of course, across the Midwest, temperatures are going to be about average for this time of year. So here's the problem with this if you're a farmer. It's good to see that we're going to have average temperatures or near above slightly average temperatures in these areas that need the help with the crop. But they're 4 to 5 weeks behind. That means not only are they behind on growth, but they're behind on how much heat they're exposed to, how many dry days they need. So this is a little concerning to me, especially for Kansas and Nebraska and South Dakota. Again, this is not saying that we're going to wake up with 50-degree temperatures in the morning and 48 degrees and stuff. I mean, I guess that could happen towards the end of the month, but it is a little bit of concern. And then we look at September, and now things starting to widen a little bit here. Below average temperatures for much of the Southwest, Arizona, Utah, New Mexico, Colorado, Kansas, Nebraska, South Dakota. You guys will see the worst of it. And then you've got a wide area of near or slightly below average temperatures for September. And again, this is not saying it's going to be freezing or frost out, but this is going to be below average temperature. So there could be that freak cold front that comes through and drops temperatures down to where we don't want them. So I know we're talking about heat wave over across the pond out near you, Henrik. And over here in the U.S., that heat wave that we're experiencing right now, it looks like it for our part of the country anyway, not for everyone, but at least for us, this was the climax of the heat. The temperature forecast for tomorrow in this region today was around 91. Yesterday we hit 96. The day before we hit 93. Tomorrow is going to be a high of 75, and it's going to remain in the mid 70s for the next 3 days. So almost a 20-degree temperature difference. And it's the middle of July, which really we should be in the mid 80s right now, at least. And we're going to be about 10 degrees below normal for this time of year. So with August looking like some warmth returning to the Ohio Valley, parts of the East Coast and the South, cooler area across the plains that will begin to develop, but troubling look here in September. Lots of cooler air, most part of the United States. Now, October, again, this near or slightly above average temperature shading. And also, this is where the third month kind of gets a little hazy. This is not as accurate as the first 30 days. The 60 days is kind of a little bit maybe off or on. The 90-day, that's hard to say at this far out. But the Weather Channel has been pretty good this year. Right now in the Northeast, the October temperatures look to be below average. Parts of Michigan and the UP, also in Wisconsin. And then you have cooler weather near California, Los Angeles area. But for the most of the United States, we're going to see above average in the South and in the Northwest. And then near or above average temperatures across Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, and so forth. So again, that doesn't mean it's going to be hot in October. It just means temperatures are going to be a little bit above average, which above average in October could mean 65 degrees in some spots. These color maps are very tricky sometimes. We got to be careful. They look warmer than, especially when you're talking about average temperature in October. And if they're predicting the Northeast to be colder in October, I'm only curious to see what November looks like. And when I see that prediction of cooler weather starting in October, I have to wonder, Henrik, is the Northeast was the part of the United States back in the 1800s when Tambora went off in 1815, and then 1816 was the year without summer. Does this part of the country once again get affected by the accumulation of the amount of volcanoes that have been going off over the past 18 months? Or is there something bigger on the horizon that could change these temperatures? That's my next wonder now here in the next 3 months as we watch moving forward.
Yeah, it's very exciting times. Like I say to a lot of people, we are actually very happy that we are alive right now, because it's a lot of stuff going on right now has not been happening in 400 years. Alone that I think is very exciting.
It's exciting to a degree where if you're a person of passion when it comes to this topic, climate, crops, stuff like that, historian stuff, it is exciting. Also, if you're not ready for this, and if you're really just catching on to this, it can be a little overwhelming too.
Yeah, and scary, of course.
I think when I first started reporting on this, and again, I'm simply just reporting and reading things that I am gathering off of reliable sources. But when I first started reporting on this, and I'm not going to lie, I wasn't ready for the majority of the truth about what was coming our way. I'm one of those people that probably I need to see it to believe it a little bit more before I make a huge speculation. Some people that I was associated in the past possibly might have had too much truth for me, to be honest with you. But the one thing that I will say about people that's influenced this channel and helped us along the way, the one reason why recently I've mentioned Lee Wilbarger is that no matter what the differences that we had during that time in our relationship, the one thing that I can say is that everything that he's ever told me about what happens during grand solar minimum, the atmosphere, the crop loss, everything about the science of the grand solar minimum, he's been right 110%. And I mention this because you got to give credit where credit's due when it comes to knowledge. Again, you don't have to like everybody. You don't have to, be fond of every single person that presents you information. I get it. Everybody's got something different. But I just felt it was necessary to recognize the fact that the beginning of this, when I first started, the person that taught me a lot about it has been right. And for me, in the last 6 months, seeing it just continue to fester up like it has, it really has sunk in. Like this is really happening. There is no soft landing. We've got to get ready a little bit faster. I know Mari and I have upped our food storage prep and have begun the process of picking that back up again. I know this is silly to share, but I was actually in a supermarket looking at seeds, thinking about, just the average-minded person thinks they could just pick up a pack of seeds and go ahead and plant in a garden right now. But if you follow this channel and the weather, you and I both know that you don't have enough time for that. Mari, I should say, was working on a project with the kids this year where she was trying to grow a little bit of things, something minor, but something to do with our children to show them how to grow. And nothing ever came of it. The soil was too cold. It was too wet. And we probably planted in late April, early May. And with all the moisture and the temperatures just not being right, unfortunately, we weren't able to get anything going. So hopefully next year we have better luck. We'll get started at a time where the weather's just right. But that's changing. It used to be we get ready at the end of March and April for our gardens in certain spots. And that's changing now. So again, lots to talk about when it comes to grand solar minimum. I don't believe there is a quick answer. When someone asks you, Henrik, about grand solar minimum, you can't summarize it in 5 minutes. It really snowballs into a giant 25, 30-minute talk. And by then, the person you're talking to is looking at you with eyes like I'm lost. So
when anybody is asking me about the grand solar minimum, I say, well, nobody is spot on.
No, there is, but all I guess what I'm saying is for those of you who are not familiar with the topic and need help with it, it's one of those things where you have to take the time for yourself to research it.
And I also have to say, Jake, that I can only speak for myself, of course, but it has also a little bit of what you was talking about with Lee just before, because, I hear a lot of folks in the community talking bad to other people, and I know you're not like that, and I'm not like that. But sometimes I also have to listen to people I basically don't like, but just because I don't like them does not mean that what they are saying is wrong. But so I have to listen to them. And I also often hear from people, why are you listening to that or that? Well, because it's not everything they say that is wrong. Some of it is also right, and I take what I can use from, every source I can,
Hey, that brings up a great point. If we could get everybody that did broadcasts about this topic to quit the drama and cut out the channel bashing back and forth and just present the information, because Henrik, you've nailed it. Everybody is different, and people need to gain certain things from certain people because maybe they hear what they're saying better than what they hear on another channel, or vice versa. And like you said, there are parts of information that even the channels that we don't really agree with, there are parts of some of their information that can be useful. And that's why I'm saying, let's stick with what we do on our channels, because each channel is great at what it does. And when it comes into this personal stuff and over, a misunderstanding or something that maybe not sit in right with one channel, but another channel believes that hey, that's their prerogative, just like it's your prerogative. And so I'm glad that we can sit here and kind of communicate with each other, because I know there's people that you support that maybe I'm not crazy about. And I know there's people I support that maybe you're not crazy about. But the important part is that we're mature adults, and we're all trying to work together when it comes to the mission and the message of the grand solar minimum, and how to prepare for it and how to be ready for it. And that's it. That's the main objective. And we're trying to do all that.
I share a lot of different stuff on my community channel on YouTube, of course. And I really like people to see that there's so many different things and so many different people who are talking about different things in the Grand Solar Minimum. And I also have to come with a quick shout out to the Wales Grand Solar Minimum channel. He's not a speaker, but he have a lot of very interesting articles on his video and videos of volcano and earthquakes and stuff like that. So he's absolutely not talking bad about anybody. He's also just, sharing a lot of different information about the Grand Solar Minimum.
And that's just it. You got channels that commentate. You got Adapt 2030. He gives great reports. Ice Age Farmer gives great reports. And then you got guys like the Wales Grand Solar Minimum channel. You're right. He puts up a lot of headline articles. And the point of that is to get your headline news as quick as possible, but also raising the awareness of these headlines and what they're centering around, which is cooling and Grand Solar Minimum and crop loss. So you're right, Henrik. There are a lot of channels out there that are trying just to get the message out, and that's it. No nonsense, period. So, all right.
Oh my God.
What's up?
I don't know. I think I don't know. Either someone is very drunk outside my window, or it is a fox. I don't know.
A fox? Oh, I've heard a fox scream, and they are quite terrifying at times. So
this is more like a laughter. Like we don't got hyenas in Denmark, I think. And my dogs are barking, so it's something. I don't know. I'm sorry.
That's all right. So let's take a look at our GFS while Henrik's dog chases more foxes.
I will be by Rick.
Yeah, across Nebraska once again. Now, I bring up Nebraska. I am in close contact with a guy I consider friends of. He's a hardworking farmer, young man. He's got a young family, good guy. And, he just told me that they were expecting a 1/4 inch of rain in his neck of the woods. And then he ends up getting 1 1 3/4 inches of rain. And here we have more rain and showers across this region right here. He's in the process of harvesting winter wheat at this time as well. But as we move into the early part of the week, we see showers across Illinois, Indiana, Ohio. There is a severe weather threat with the Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, and the backside of these storms going through just in that region. Maybe the northern part of Kentucky, the mid-Atlantic states also will have the potential for severe weather. I know it's not showing up very well on the GFS, but there is that threat. And you can going into Tuesday, that's where parts like Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, parts of the Northeast will experience much cooler air. Temperatures really cooling down. Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Minnesota, very refreshing for this time of year. And really high pressure just sits in the middle of next week, keeping all that moisture south and north before that high pressure is pushed off into the Atlantic. Maybe got a low pressure system trying to push some weather towards the Ohio Valley and the East Coast. But again, high pressure dominating. Are we there?
What's going on? Hello? I'm here.
Offline as well.
So we all got knocked offline. It's the beauty of Google Hangouts, though. You know,
yeah.
It always recovers very nice. Bear with me, folks. I will get this fixed. Maybe the Al Gore rhythms stepped in again.
Well, you know, I will always have a climate joke ready if anything happens.
As long as it's a climate joke.
It is. It is. It is very sweet.
So we got really a lot of high pressure and a lot of dry time for the last part of July, for the most part. After we get through these showers and storms that are firing up right now, really, guys, after this weekend, Monday and Tuesday, once this system moves out, it's going to be lots of dry weather across the mid-United States, northern plains, some scattered showers up in the Dakotas and Minnesota. Nothing too crazy. You got your typical rains there in New Mexico and Colorado. But really, nothing much to report on for next week. Even in the next weekend, we don't have anything impressive as far as storms or any kind of hurricanes or nothing like that developing. Now, we get closer into July 29th, towards the end of this month, we start to see an active pattern in moisture once again. And actually, it gets real busy again for the Ohio Valley into the Northeast by the end of July. And we start August with rain across the Midwest, the East, and the South. And most of the rest of the country, we're not really seeing too much action. August 2nd, another East Pacific hurricane that's making its way towards the Baja area. And we will actually keep an eye on this system, but it does appear to be dissipating as we get to August 4th. So still something to watch. But as far as storms go, I'm going to go back to Mike's weather page here in a minute. Man, I'm impressed actually to see the dry weather that we're going to get here after this major system that we have here now, unless this changes. Of course, you know, I always tell you guys, the first 6 to 10 days is pushing it on this GFS. The 3 to 4 days is the best. But according to the GFS right now, this rainy pattern might finally let up just a little bit, but it does pick up again once we get towards the end of July. So we get about 6 days of dry weather. And then the beginning of August, mixed feelings right now of where that high pressure actually is going to be. So we'll just have to wait. But we do get some dry weather for the immediate future after Tuesday. through at least early weekend, the majority of the United States is going to remain dry for the most part. Maybe some scattered showers across the south, but other than that, nothing too pressing when it comes to our weather. And just real quick, we were talking about tropical systems. Just take a look at these tracks, folks. If there is any development, most of these models are trying to tell us that this storm is going to not come close to the coast and go back out to sea. Now, it's early, so obviously we'll keep an eye on this. But as of right now, most forecast models, there is one that does have it making inland to Florida through Georgia and into South Carolina. So that one, kind of keep an eye on that one. But that's really 1 out of 8 here that are showing us it's going out to sea. So actually kind of quiet and calm on the weather front. Now we just watch the other side of this, which is the earthquakes and the volcanoes and the space weather that we get that's associated with the grand solar minimum. So with that being said, Mari, would you like to come over here and say hello to everyone in the chat and say hi to old Uncle Henrik over here?
Uncle Henrik, he's not there.
Hello.
I'm not going to call you Uncle. It's a pleasure having you on, Henrik. Everyone is enjoying a new perspective of what people are seeing in regards to the weather changes and grand solar minimum. Yeah, we got booted offline. That's what we're recovering from in the chat. And Kruller mentioned something about playing cover band music to his plants. And I just said that you were a walking cover band. You know, you sing. Jake,
Gotcha.
if those who are new to the channel that don't know, Jake's an amazing vocalist and he sings a lot. You should sing for us, Jake, sometime.
Yeah, no.
I'm just joking.
No thanks.
We'll save it for another channel. That's basically.
Yeah.
That was a surprise seeing David Birch post on his YouTube channel, Mr. TSM. He said he might remove the cobwebs and actually come on live with us, and I'm going to keep on bugging him. I've been bugging him for 2 years. But life, and we understand. So hopefully he's ready for that soon. I'm excited to start these programs up, having different people on. It's great having Henrik on, having TSM on, and others. It's good to start back up again. I'm sure I have notes, but the puppy's crying, so I don't know what I should do.
Well,
let me help her first. Sorry, Jake.
Henrik, while we're waiting on her, I guess any last message that you would like to tell our viewers and talk about your channel, anything like that?
No, I just had a little climate joke.
Let's hear it.
Okay. 2 planes are meeting, and the first plane asks, "How are you?" "Well, I'm not so well," the other plane answered. "I got the Homo sapiens." "Well," the first plane said, "don't worry, I did also have the Homo sapiens. That did not last long." Ha ha ha. Have you no humor? Humans.
It's hot here. We turn the air off during the show because it's too loud. So it's just hot.
You know what, Jake? Before the show, I was talking to my girlfriend, and I said to her that all us people from the Grand Solar Minimum, we had to stick together. And then she was just looking at me and said, "What stick?"
Okay.
Oh, boy. Hey, Matt Rose wants to know what time it is over in Denmark.
It is 22:22. So 8 minutes to 10:30.
There you
So
go.
it's 10 o'clock in the evening over there. Thank you for staying up. We tried to start doing the Sunday afternoon a little bit earlier, because if we would have done this show at normal time, well, let's just say Henrik would be up in the middle of the night. It would be 3, 4 o'clock in the morning if he was joining us. So glad you were able to stay up this evening and stick it out with us. Mara, do you have some more?
Yeah, I want to thank Matt Rose. He's naughty, sending super chats again to us. He is so kind. We really appreciate that. Matt, we hope you can come on as well to our show to give he's like, I'm no expert, Murray. I don't need to be on here. And I'm like, you know what? You're an expert because you're a farmer and you see firsthand and you understand the struggles. So you're just as important. You have something to bring to the table in this community, just like many people do. It's a broad topic, and there's lots to discuss.
Yep.
Robbie Hill, thank you for becoming a new Patreon member. We appreciate that. And Mr. Morgan Kell is happy to see us on live at this time frame. We have a lot of people in different time zones we're trying to cater to. So hopefully with us juggling the schedule and having a live show at this time zone we can get some more people into the chat. And I just think it's good because we do have a lot of followers in many different time zones, and it's hard to do. That puppy, bark.
Wow.
Anyway, what else? Oh, and then Matthew Bros asked me about my learning series that I started. The last video I did was breaking down the different solar cycles, regular solar cycle, grand minimum cycle, and a super grand minimum cycle. It seems like a lot of people appreciated that. And I'm hoping I can get that started now that things are sort of calmed down. Hopefully once a week I can have one of those like getting started overview educational type videos for people to learn from.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Mari, because this is a period of time where you do have a little bit more time to kind of work on projects like that. But when we're in the thick of volcano after earthquake, after storm, after flood, after this, after that, there's no time to really sit and work on projects when we've got to keep up with what's been happening. So this is kind of like a welcome lull right now for you as far as that goes.
It's sort of a lull for me. I am juggling things. I'm still working on Valentina Zarkova's site. She just got back. She was traveling in Montreal doing some discussions. She's been trolled pretty heavily with her new paper. And I'm working on a video that sort of debunks these people that are trying to bash her work. And it's basically just a bunch of people that think they know it all, that think the science is a consensus and the case is closed, and they haven't done the research. So you will see a video coming out also sort of disputing those people combating Valentina. I have 3 papers that support her sim theory in the paper. So, it takes time breaking down really highly technical information into layman's terms. So we appreciate you guys understanding our change in schedule and all that. It does. We don't really have a normal schedule, do we, Jake?
Not really.
We try our best.
We try to at least do 3 live shows a week, and we try to do solar updates Monday through Friday. Sometimes that doesn't happen. We get 2 or 3 out a week. But again, when we are live, we try to include as much information as we possibly can. Mari does work to the website and tries to include more information as we can. And, hopefully these Sundays we can start adding different guests and perspective. And like I said, Matt and I did speak off earlier, and sounds like I could get him on live and just talk about the farming life. I think folks out there really want to hear what it's been like this year, what are the concerns, and not just from a commentator who reads articles and has an opinion, but someone who actually puts in the work day in and day out. So that being
That's
said,
very great, Jake, because you know what? I heard a lot of people discussing on the internet that in the future, farmers would have to be reliable on electrical powered tractors and everything else. And I said, that's a joke, man. You cannot discuss that. That will never happen.
Nope. No, it is a joke. You're right. But Henrik, thank you once again for coming on live with us tonight, or today. Tonight for you, today for us. We really enjoyed your company, and it's been a long time. So this was fun to be able to get to do this again. We really appreciate you joining us today.
You are so very welcome.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for this afternoon here on the Grand Solar Minimum channel. Sit tight. We should be live probably Tuesday night. That'll be July 23rd. So look for a live show on July 23rd, 9 p.m. Eastern time. Until then, we'll talk soon.